Right, so how we doing? Just here to talk about Ariel Helwani a little bit. You know, let's go through his Twitter, yeah? He said, Logan Paul is incredible in WWE. If you didn't know who he was, you'd think he's been doing this for years. You know Ariel, yeah? Do you know what he does? You know, he always talks about how he's this really ethical journalist and, he does things, fairly down the middle. He's unbiased. All he does is look after his own bag. Ariel's always going to tweet about people who can get him further. Do you know what I mean? He's going to play the game. He's going to make sure that, you know what, I'm not going to shit on the Paul brothers, even if they're doing shit. Like, even if he was shit at wrestling, Ariel would be sucking him off. Because it's better exposure, isn't it? And Logan Paul's team and stuff, they're going to say, that Ariel guy, he's good, he gave us some gas. Do you know what I mean? And Logan Paul, he's not doing anything special, is he? He's just a normal guy. But, because he's famous, he's got a lot of opportunities. And that's all right, isn't it? But, Ariel trying to jump on the bandwagon. It was like that Jake Paul fight, wasn't it? Jake Paul. He's been cancelled to fight Hassim Rahman Jr. Jake was trying to come up with all these stipulations, about the weight and the rehydration. His team were investigating Hassim, asking, have you been training? What you weighing right now? This and that, trying to do all the research, acting like they're going to bring him in for sparring. And Ariel, he likes to talk about Dana, doesn't he? He likes to talk about Dana White, doesn't he? He likes to say, Dana, he's doing the wrong matchups here out of spite, and he's stacked the deck against Nate Diaz or whoever. But he's not going to say anything about Jake Paul, is he? Why? Because Jake Paul's giving him a load of opportunities, hasn't he? He's saying you can do the face-off and the announcement in the ring, post-fight interviews, weigh-in shows, and he's probably going to give him a nice 6-figure bag, for doing those shows. So Ariel, he's a bit of a hypocrite, isn't he? He's not really this down the middle, straight and arrowed. He's not like a straight arrow journalist, is he? Like that Brett Okamoto, he's fucking garbage, isn't he? He's terrible. Like that Brett Okamoto. Got no personality at all, has he? He's shocking. Do you remember when he interviewed Paddy Pimblett last week? And he said Justin Levitt. Brett Okamoto, yeah, he's got one job. It's just pretty much to know the names of the fighters, because he doesn't ask anything interesting, does he? And he got Paddy Pimblett's opponent wrong on air and then apologized and said, oh, he's from my home city.
Mm-hmm. Justin Levitt, you've talked about him a lot this week. Why do you think that? Why is it Justin Levitt?
See, it just shows, doesn't it? No one knows who this crab is. His name's Jordan Levitt. You know what I mean?
Oh, sorry, Jordan Levitt.
Just shows what an absolute bum he is.
Well, I have to apologize to Jordan Levitt because he's actually from my hometown of
Las Jordan,
Vegas,
you're a bum. You're an absolute
has had
bum.
a UFC career, and
that's just embarrassing, isn't it? That's not professional at all, is it? They're probably paying Brett Okamoto a decent salary, because Luke Thomas once, he was saying, any journalist who makes it to TV is getting paid pretty well. And, they're always chucking Okamoto up there, aren't they? Because, they had Ariel and him in like a 2-horse race, and no one likes Ariel Helwani, do they? They all think he's a scumbag. They think he's a snake, so they kept giving all the breaking news to breaking news Brett Okamoto. And, he still can't persuade us, can he? No one's interested in hearing him speak. He's fucking boring, man. He's dreadful, isn't he? Ariel, yeah, look, he always gets Jake Paul on his show, doesn't he? And he says, you're so great, this and that. And, You're really doing amazing for fighter pay, but Jake Paul, he only offered Hasim Rahman Jr. a small fee, the lowest fee out of any fighter he's had so far. And that's not really caring about fighter pay, is it? Saying take it or leave it. This is the only offer we're going to give you. Stacking the deck against Hasim. And, Rahman, he obviously signed a contract and that. And I'm not saying that he's, Jake should have agreed to a higher weight. Whatever was agreed, fair enough. But, Jake, he was snidey with the way he built that fight, wasn't he? Trying to control every factor. And Ariel was letting him, wasn't he? Not letting him get away with it. Ariel's fucking cringy, man, isn't he?
It's coming home. It's coming. Football's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming. Football's coming home.
When he starts singing on his show, the MMA Hour.
World's been turning. Here we go. Invicta signs 15. Fighters. Jacare beats Carmo. Machida beats Musasi. Fedor remarried his ex-wife. Evans out for 6 months.
Sometimes it's a really good show, you get some good interviews. I like watching Francis NGANNOU on there. And then he'll just get all these fucking stupid wrestlers on. No one cares. No one cares about these wrestlers, do they? No one gives a fuck about these wrestlers. Ariel Helwani meets Charlotte Flair. It says it. What does your tattoo mean? What's your favourite storyline? Who's your dream opponent? No one gives a fuck. We just want to see her tits, don't we? We just want to see her tits. We don't really care about anything else, do we? No one gives a fuck. You know what I mean? He's interviewing Rey Mysterio and Roman Reigns and Biggie Langston. No one cares. No one in the MMA community gives a fuck. Why are you forcing us to listen to this garbage? What about Natalia? She's quite nice, isn't she? But she's a no one, isn't she? She's just famous because of Bret Hart. Same as Charlotte Flair, isn't it? Wrestling's just garbage, It's just trash these days, isn't it? There's nothing original, is there? Nothing original at all. Jake Paul saying he single-handedly saved boxing. That was on Ariel's show, and Ariel didn't say, I don't really think boxing needed you. You just brought a different element to boxing. Ariel said, yeah, you're right, man. Boxing was dying until you came along, with your 50,000 pay-per-view buys. Jake Paul, he can only be a B-side, can't he? He needs an opponent to push him over the edge. Because no one cares about him versus Hasim Rahman sales-wise, do they? No one cares. He actually needs the opponent. The opponent doesn't really need him. He talks about him versus Conor as it's like a huge fight. It's a load of bollocks, isn't it? Because Conor is the attraction there. It's not really Jake Paul. It's not Jake Paul at all. Jake Paul is an amateur who isn't that good, who every fight he's been in, he hasn't even fought a real boxer. And he's not really even selling very well, is he? Him trying to claim that he did 1.2 million buys when he fought against Nate Robinson. That was on the undercard of Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. Like a fantasy fight for us hardcores. He's trying to say that there was people who were ordering the show that night, and someone was asking them, "Hey, you excited for Tyson?" And they're saying, "No, I want to watch the Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson fight. That's the only reason I put my $50 down." It's a load of bollocks, isn't it? It's just he's talking crap, man. But Ariel will never say that, will he? Ariel will never say Jake Paul is a great B-side. Ariel will say Jake Paul, he does the numbers, He does huge numbers. What about Eubank? Chris Eubank Jr. He started jumping on the Jake Paul bandwagon, didn't he? You know Chris Eubank Jr.? His dad was a legend, you know.
On that particular night in question, I will show that I have what it takes. This man is nothing but, he's the real hype. I come up the hard way. I didn't have Frank Warren.
Myself, boy.
You had your time. Let's have some parliamentary procedure here, all right?
Oh, God.
His dad had one of the best chins, and he was one of the most polarizing British boxers that we had. But, you know, Eubank Jr., he's a bit of a waste of time, isn't he? Eubank Jr., he was calling out Kell Brook and Amir Khan, you know, on their way out on their last retirement fight. You know, he lost to George Groves, didn't he? And Billy Joe Saunders, and he's still acting like he's undefeated and isn't fighting anyone who's a top tier guy. He's now he's calling out Jake Paul in the midst of these Conor Benn negotiations, and it's not looking good, is it? You know, his reputation. He's saying, I want to be a world champ. But why are you calling out Jake Paul then if you want to be a world champ? It's a bit of a joke, isn't it? Bit of a joke. What was a big fight this weekend? Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes. You know, Juliana Pena, she's tragic, isn't she? Did you see her form? See the way she was lunging in, her engagements. You know, remember when she threw that 7-punch combo in the second round and just got fucking dropped by Nunes with that tragic form, swinging all over the place. You know that slow gif of Ronda Rousey doing those little shoulder punches? That was Juliana, you know, on Saturday night. Juliana, she was talking a lot of crap, wasn't she? You know, she started saying, I got so many opportunities, you know, by winning the belt, you know. I was on ESPN. I was on Sports Center. I was on the Pivot podcast. You know, I was with the Schmo. But she didn't say I was lucky enough to be on MMA fighting with Ariel Helwani. And, you know, even if she did say that, you know, Dana, he'd say, no, we're not having that, you know. We're going to strip your title, you know, just for mentioning that guy, the guy who's been blackballed. You know the guy with black balls? Black Ball Helwani. You're not allowed to mention him. You know, if you mention him, it's like Candyman, you know. Ariel just comes up from behind you and makes sure your career's dead. You know, anyone in the UFC, if they even mention him. So Juliana Pena, she got embarrassed, didn't she? On Saturday night. She got absolutely outclassed for 5 rounds. You know Amanda, yeah. Amanda's stand-up was pretty crisp, you know. But her game plan and fight IQ was awful, wasn't it? You know, the way she was engaging on the ground for no reason and not really pushing the finish. You know, giving more chance to get herself knocked out or submitted by someone who's garbage like Pena. It's not good, is it? Nunes is on the decline. You know, if I was Dana White, do you know what I would have done when Juliana Pena won? I would have watched that performance when she knocked out Nunes. Well, knocked her down, took her down and submitted her. And I would have said, this new champion is complete garbage. Let's feed her to Shevchenko so Shevchenko can get a win. Alright, because not that many people are interested in the Shevchenko-Nunes third fight. Some people are, but you know what would make it spicier? Is if they did Shevchenko versus Pena next, immediately. Let Shevchenko go up and smack her about, yeah? Because you know Pena got submitted by Jermaine Durandamy, who's got absolutely zero ground game. So that's not a good look, is it? So Shevchenko would probably wipe her up, you know, mollywop her, right? And then you have a Shevchenko-Nunes 35-pound title match, which is a trilogy, but the shoe's on the other foot. And if Shevchenko wins, right, you can even sell the triple belt fight with Nunes. You know, Shevchenko just got up to 145 directly afterwards. And you got a very spicy storyline, haven't you? You got Shevchenko possibly getting 3 belts. That would have been quite nice, you know. Because then Nunes and Shevchenko both get the rub, don't they? By winning that fight. So that would have been good, you know. But Pena, you know, she was... What about that stare down? You know, Ariel Helwani. He started saying, oh, this is such a cold picture, you know, seeing Pena's daughter staring down Amanda Nunes, you know. But that was stupid, man. You know, bringing your kid on stage like that. That was stupid, wasn't it? That was actually irresponsible parenting, you know. That was bad parenting. You know, because if a brawl broke out on stage, right, that kid would have got absolutely flatlined, wouldn't she? And you know, even having your kid do that, it's a bit cringe, man. Like, it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? It's not really, you know, trying to act like your kid is, you know, about that life. And it's like, it's a little girl wearing a dress, mate. Like, it's a load of bollocks, isn't it? Like, Pena was doing anything to try and get headlines, wasn't she? She was saying anything, you know. Oh, I had Johnny Knoxville on a bear in my back garden, you know, ready to bring into the tough gym. No one cares, man. No one cares about your Ultimate Fighter season, you know. No one gives a fuck. No one gives a fuck about the Ultimate Fighter, especially not with you two coaching it. Do you know what I mean? You know, they had that Colby Masvidal opportunity, and Masvidal was, you know, he said no. And you know, they had, even Tony and Khabib, it's a little bit interesting, isn't it? But trying to sell me on Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena as the tough coaches is a load of rubbish, isn't it? Because Pena can't even strike, can she? She can't even throw a 1-2. Pena's striking might be some of the worst I've ever seen. You know, for a champion, or you know, even for like a top 5 main card. For anyone I've ever seen on the main card in my life, that might be the worst striking technique possibly ever. You know, even worse than back in the days when you had like Mark Hunt versus Chris Tuchscherer. You know, Mark Hunt, his technique's brilliant, isn't it? But you know, like fighting Brock Lesnar's little sparring dummy. You know, they even had that on the main card, and Pena's was worse than that. So imagine that. You know. It's a joke, man. Ariel's, you know, he's jumping on the bandwagon, you know. He's fake, man. He's fake, you know. It's not good, you know. It's not good him just talking rubbish all the time, you know, trying to act like he knows what's going on and, you know, saying Daniel Cormier is the GOAT, you know. He said Daniel Cormier is the heavyweight GOAT. You know, Daniel Cormier is not the GOAT in any division he's ever fought in. Do you know why? Because he lost to both GOATs in both divisions. So that immediately excludes him from any GOAT list in those divisions, doesn't it? You know, he lost to Stipe twice, and he lost to Jones twice. And people want to talk about stipulations, but he still lost, yeah? Twice. And even the first time against Jones, it was clear, wasn't it? With no controversy. But you know, Ariel, he likes to kiss a bit of arse, doesn't he? So he can get more interviews and clicks and stuff like that, you know. So he starts pumping up DC, you know. You know, because Stipe won't give him as many interviews. You know, or John Jones, he's hard to get an interview with. So it's better to just promote Cormier, isn't it? Who's, you know, a bit of a company guy, you know, that shill. You know, Daniel Shilly Cormier. You know what he's like, innit? But yeah, Ariel, he's all over the place, man. What did he tweet after that fight? You know, Brandon Moreno, he dropped Kai Kara France with that body kick, didn't he? You know, it was quite nice, wasn't it? Brandon Moreno, he done well. You know, Kai Kara France, he started staring at him after the first round. You know, maybe because he starts training with Izzy and Volkanovski, he probably thought, oh, this is going to be easy. You know, look who I train with. Who does Brandon Moreno train with? You know, James Krause. James Krause is like that fucking... You know, that moth that gets in your room that you can't get rid of? You know, it keeps flying around. That's what James Krause is, isn't it? He's like a moth. And you know, they look a bit like, oh fuck, I don't want to go near him, you know. And then, you know, when they're lost, you just hope they never come back again. But you know, James Krause, he fucking keeps coming back, doesn't he? He's there every week, you know, cornering someone. Do you know what I mean? And you know, Ariel Helwani, he started tweeting, you know, afterwards saying, James Krause, you know, congrats on your first ever world champion, you know, in Brandon Moreno. Even though Moreno just came from holding the belt. You know, in my opinion, you know, if you're a coach, yeah, you know, if you're a coach and you've built someone up from the ground up and then they become champion, you know, that's really your world champion, isn't it? You know, trying to act like, you know, like Ben Davison. I don't know if you guys know who that is. You know, Tyson Fury. He used this trainer, yeah, who's a no one. This guy was in his mid-20s, right? And he used to host these boxercise classes in a local gym. You know, he was using boxercise Ben, you know, to train for his fights as his head coach, you know. And then they started saying, you know, Ben, he's an amazing trainer. Wow, he's training Tyson Fury, you know. But he didn't start building him, did he? You know, he didn't start building him, did he? You know, that was his uncle, you know, Peter Fury, and, you know, all that. And his dad, you know, Big John Fury. These guys started training him, you know. So for James Krause to come in and try and take all the credit, like he's made Brandon Moreno's career, it's a load of rubbish, isn't it? You might be trying to just, you know, trying to score some chicks, you know, by saying I know Brandon Moreno. Maybe he's got a visit to Mexico, and he's got a thing for the Latino women over there. You know, in Pachuca, Mexico. You know, Ariel Helwani. He started saying, James Krause, you're the man, you know. You've done so much. But he hasn't done anything, has he? He's never achieved anything, has he? He was garbage as a fighter. And, you know, when he was Megan Anderson's head coach, you know, you're not really looking at that. You know, if you're an opponent and you're preparing for Megan Anderson, you're not really thinking, oh shit, she's got James Krause in her corner, I better watch out. You know, you'd rather have like a Faraz Zahabi, you know, someone like that. Faraz Zahabi, you know, or a Mike Brown, you know, or a Trevor Whitman. These are really good coaches, you know. So for, you know, they're trying to act like James Krause is on that level. It's nonsense, isn't it? It's silly. You know, the moth, Krause, he's garbage, man. He's garbage. What about Nina Nunes? Amanda Nunes' wife. You know, they really tried to push her, didn't they? She was tragic, you know, she was garbage. You know, when she was Nina Ansaroff, and they had her ranked number 4 in the division after beating absolutely no one. You know, but because she was, you know, with Amanda Nunes all the time, you know, they thought, oh, you know, we can maybe push her, you know, and get a double Nunes combo. You know, like 2 Nunes meals for the price of 1. But then she got her ass kicked, didn't she? From Suarez and Mackenzie Dern. You know, Mackenzie Dern has shown a lot of vulnerability as well, you know. So Nina Nunes was a waste of space, you know. Even Amanda, you know, them two together, you know, they made Nina have the baby, you know. It's a calculated move, isn't it? Yeah, it's a calculated move because she wasn't that good, you know. She wasn't very good at all. You know, her best win is beating Randa Marcos. Do you know what I mean? Or Justine Kish. She actually lost to Justine Kish. That's the woman who shit herself, isn't it? And then she tweeted afterwards like, shit happens. Yeah, Nina Nunes, waste of time, innit? Anthony Smith, you know, he got fucked up, didn't he? You know, Anthony Smith, he was talking a lot of shit, wasn't he, a few weeks ago? You know, when that Yuri Prohaska versus Glover Teixeira fight was on, And it was a really great fight, it was a back and forth war, big battle of attrition, Glover, in his 40s doing the damn thing, fighting hard. And Anthony Smith said that was probably the worst fight that they could have fought. They both fought a really shit fight, He talks a lot, doesn't he? He was like saying, no one ever wanted to interview Anthony Smith, because he's not interesting, is he? And then when he started breaking down fights, he's starting to love the camera, isn't he? He's a bit like Tony Bellew. Tony Bellew from boxing. Once he retired, he said, "You're never going to see me again." And he's fucking everywhere, isn't he? And Anthony Smith, he sort of did the same thing. He copied the Tony Bellew. He copied the Anthony Bellew model. Anthony copying Anthony. Anthony Smith, he ended up finding any camera he can find and just spouting his dumb opinion. And he always tries to act like in fights, like, I want my respect, I'm really good and this and that. But you're not, are you? You're not really that good at all. You're scratching the top 10 maybe. He's had 50 fights, someone with 50 fights. He's basically he's just another guy, isn't he? To have 50 fights and not get it right, it means you're just another guy, innit? So stop hyping like you're this super elite guy. Did you see Terence Crawford, He took a picture, didn't he? Terence Crawford, Bud Crawford, he's from Nebraska, isn't he? He's from Omaha. And he took a picture with Anthony Smith and Drew Dober, they're from Nebraska as well, aren't they? But he probably didn't know who the fuck they were. Do you know what I mean? He was sitting next to Mike Tyson, and Dana White. And he was probably like, I don't even know who the fuck these guys are. He said his kids wrestle, didn't they? He said, my kids wrestle, and they're really good. They're number one in the state and stuff. But I'd never put them in mixed martial arts because there's no money. There's no money in it. He's got a point, hasn't he? For the damage. It's not worth it, is it? Do you think Terence Crawford, do you think there's any universe where Terence Crawford knows who Drew Dober is? It's very unlikely, isn't it? It's just not likely at all. Ariel Helwani probably doesn't even know who any of those people on the early prelims are. But he acts like he watches every fight, doesn't he? I watch every pay-per-view every week, this is my job, I love it, this and that. But he doesn't watch any one cards, he doesn't watch any Bellator, he doesn't watch any early prelims. He starts complaining, he moans, doesn't he? He says, oh, that main event started at 11:05 at night. I think that was a bit late, I was ready to put my kids to bed. And the fans around the world, in like Australia or in the UK, or maybe they're in India, these fans are staying up to stupid times or waking up at stupid times just to watch these fights that this guy is just like getting paid to watch, and we're paying to watch. So, Ariel, he's finessed the system, hasn't he? He's a finesser. He's figured out a way to, play the game, where he doesn't have to do much work at all. Like Brendan Sharp, he doesn't watch anything, does he? Doesn't even know what's going on. Did you see that video the other day where he was with Michael Chandler and he started naming Bilal Muhammad in the 55 division? He's a clown, isn't he? Ariel, he thinks he's, he starts saying, I'm heel Wani, don't come at me, this and that. But you're a victim, aren't you? You play the victim card all the time, don't you? When Khabib exposed Ariel Helwani, do you remember that interview?
Why you not say this for the Twitter?
Said that many times.
No. Listen. When you send me 2 contracts, right?
Yeah.
Why you not say nothing about this?
I believe that I did.
Why you talk with me like friend? For me, is loyal is number one. If you don't know what is this loyal, you have to go Google Translate.
I know exactly what loyal is, but I'm not rooting for anyone. I knew that was the fight that they wanted.
Very good before, but when UFC send me 2 contracts,
sure.
You
to put pressure on Eddie to accept the deal and not negotiate.
Why you not say nothing about me?
Because I didn't want to play in that game. I'm here to report the facts.
When Khabib was like yeah, you betrayed my trust, you know, you didn't even mention me, this and that, when they sent me 2 contracts. And you know, Ariel, he never takes responsibility when he's in the hot seat, does he? He never owns up, you know, when he's in the hot seat, you know, because he thinks he doesn't do anything wrong, but he is, you know. He plays all the sides, doesn't he, you know? And then he wonders why Ali doesn't want to touch him, you know? You know, he's in Dana's ear, you know. It's better to be friends with Dana than Ariel Helwani, isn't it? Ariel will give you an interview and make you seem really good. But you know, when it's convenient for him, he'll go for your opponent, you know. That's not journalism, you know. That's looking out for yourself, isn't it? But, you know, it's hidden, isn't it? You know, people don't realize it, do they? But, you know, that's what we're here to do, you know. That's what we're going to do, you know. We're going to expose anyone, you know, who's been making moves undercover, you know that. Anyone who's been making moves undercover, you know, they're all on the list, you know. It's going to happen right here, starting now.